Well, hello everyone. I'm Chef Jennifer Hill Booker, and I am a chef, author, and food advocate. And I am so excited to moderate the final event in Northwest Arkansas Council's You Love Speaker Series. First things first, let's talk about today's discussion, which is You Love Cuisine, Food Culture in Emerging Cities. It focuses on emerging culinary scenes in growing cities, and we'll discuss how chefs across the country are using their platforms to create awareness around important topics. And that's like where food comes from and the significance behind the culture behind the foods of some of our favorite dishes. And we are thrilled to have an amazing panel of talented chefs, authors, and creatives joining us today. As a chef, I always look at food and cultures around the world and kind of see where my food culture fits in. And we all have to eat, so we have that in common. But I think as we look, we can see where our cultures, our foods, our ingredients, our techniques all overlap and how that is just connected globally, if we're being honest. I look at food as the great culinary equalizer. I also look at having a culinary skill as being very empowering because that's something that no one can ever take away from you. So that's my viewpoint. And now we're going to get the viewpoint of our guests today. So I'd like to introduce our guests. And first up, we have Chef Kwame Nwachi. And Kwame is the James Beard Award-winning chef. He's Esquire Magazine's Chef of the Year. He's the author of Notes from a Young Black Chef, which was published by Alfred and Knopf Publishing Company. Kwame was born in Long Island, but raised in New York City, Nigeria, and Louisiana. And he was first exposed to cooking by his mother in their modest Bronx apartment. And he took that spark of passion and turned it into the career we have before us. So from toiling in the bowels of oil cleanup ships and to working to some of the best restaurants in the world, he has seen and lived his fair share of diversity. I believe you, Chef Kwame, trained at the Culinary Institute of America. You've opened 5 restaurants before turning 30. You've been named one of Food and Wine's best new chefs, Esquire Magazine's Chef of the Year, and a 30 under 30 honoree by both Zagat and Forbes. Now, we also have 2 gentlemen that are joining us today as well, and that is Lester Walker and Pierre Serro, and they're joining us today from Ghetto Gastro.
Peace, 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 peace.
Along with their partner, which is not with us today, but along with their partner, John Gray, Pierre and Lester are the Bronx-born creative collective known as Ghetto Gastro that transcends food, art, music, fashion, and design. And my understanding is the Bronx is part of the team's lifeblood, and every piece of the Ghetto Gastro universe is meant to uplift and celebrate that borough and other places like it as an unsung driver of global culture. And since their founding in 2012, the collective worked to explore global food tradition through the lens of the African diaspora, has led to its masterminding events for fashion, designers, artists, entrepreneurs, musicians, and tech organizations. Event themes have ranged from everything like Marvel's Black Panther future world of Wakanda to the colonization about inclusion, race, economic empowerment through food. And this group occupies the crossroads of fashion, music, film, visual art, and cuisine. And it looks like after almost a decade of breaking down boundaries between cultures and cuisine, Ghetto Gastro is making 2020 a marquee year. They're releasing a custom line of kitchen appliances, and I heard a little bit about that before we got started. Seasonings and kitchenware. They're producing a forthcoming television series and continuing to bring the Bronx to the world and the world to the Bronx. So welcome, gentlemen. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. And I guess the first question will be for you, Kwame. And can you start us off by sharing a little bit more about your story and particularly about the major milestones you've achieved and what you've had to overcome to get where you are and to have achieved such grand goals?
My mom had a catering company that she operated from the house in the Bronx, and it was me, my sister, and her. And I was pretty much put to work at a very early age. You know, we had to help to keep the lights on and do whatever it takes. So at 5 years old, I was one of her first employees. That chore turned into a passion. I spent some time in Nigeria as well, about 2 years in Nigeria, kind of learning to respect where my ingredients come from. You know, we had to cultivate our own vegetables. We had to raise our own livestock. We wanted cooking oil. We had to go and press the palm kernel to make palm oil in order to even start cooking. So that process gave me a greater appreciation to why we need to respect our ingredients and take very good care in that. I came back with a newfound appreciation for life, you know, went to school and started working in kitchens. And from there, I worked everywhere from the Gulf of Mexico and the Deepwater Horizon oil spill to, 3 Michelin star kitchens in New York City. After that, I went on to do a slew of pop-ups around the world. And I stopped in DC a couple times and then opened up restaurant there and just kept going essentially and not ever stopping. I recently wrote a memoir and have just been trying to tell people that you can achieve anything that you put your mind to, as long as you don't let anything get in your way, especially yourself.
As we know, as people evolve, our taste and preferences for food evolves. And right now in the state of our society and with the Black Lives Matter movement, what evolution in the culinary scene have you seen and what would you like to see?
I mean, I've seen more people of color be promoted to jobs that they've deserved for so long. You look at the editor-in-chief of Bon Appetit, that's one small step, but that's what it's going to take to really change the food industry. I wrote an article last year, Food and Wine magazine, Jury of Our Peers. And it was kind of taken from a Dave Chappelle skit where he was doing what Law and Order would look like on the other side. And if there was a jury of our peers that actually were judging us, maybe these outcomes of crimes and things would be different. And I equated that to the food world. We don't really have a jury of our peers. We have people that are judging us on our Caribbean food or African food, all of our ethnic backgrounds that have no cultural connection to it or general interest in it. They don't want to vacation there. They don't eat that kind of food, but yet we're left to them to tell us or tell the world that we're great chefs and restaurateurs and somms and writers. But until we have, people of color in power from the top down, is the only way things will change and create a more equitable industry.
How are you using your platform to create more awareness about these topics in our industry?
Well, by speaking about one, my book, The General Undertone, is about racial inequality in the food world. You can take that word chef from my book and switch it up to glasses maker or seamstress, and the narrative will remain true, that there are racial disparities, especially when you get closer to the top in any industry, when there are less people that look like you. In addition to that, I donate a lot of appearances and time and dollars to the Bronx Community Health Link. It's a nonprofit in the Bronx that helps a bunch of different other nonprofits, whether it's aiding Black and brown mothers through their pregnancy term, so that they're the main ones that deal with birth defects. A lot of doctors are always pushing for C-sections and mishandling them when they come to the hospitals. So I think if we start at the source, at the source of life, we can hopefully make a change for the future.
We're going to shift over a little bit and talk to our other two gentlemen of the day, which are Lester and Pierre. And I'm going to start with Lester. If you could share a little bit more about your story, give us a little bit background.
First and foremost, I want to thank you, Finding NWA, for
putting this panel of, distinguished people together. And also to the people that are listening and watching this to get out there and vote. It's imperative that we use our voices to end things such as hunger. The Bronx is the hungriest county in the nation right now, the most vulnerable, the most at risk. So it's very important that we get out there and vote and speak our minds and get the proper people in our city council to speak for us. And as far as Ghetto Gastro, we've been doing very instrumental things in the community as far as, providing for families that are in need at the moment, collaborating and partnering with Rethink Food and La Mirada to provide meals for thousands of families across New York City. That's something that we stand for, feeding the minds, the bodies, and the souls of our community, because, food and greens are currency. We have to take advantage of, the things that we have and be able to provide for others. But me, myself, I'm a product of the Bronx Board of Education, and seeing these things, I know that a lot of things need to be changed in the Board of Education, such as things that we eat, things that we learn, our history, which is not being taught to us. We're learning someone else's history and not ours. These are the things that I've seen growing up, and, these are the things that I want to contribute to make a change. Ghetto Gastro, we have the opportunity to work with many brands, the likes of, Audemars Piguet, nice watches. We had the opportunity to work with Microsoft, Cartier, and at the same time, we use that money to put it back into our community and provide some type of education, health education for those that are in need. The sad thing about it is that President Trump just signed a mandate to cut the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, better known as SNAP. 700,000 people are going to sleep hungry every night. 11% of those people are senior citizens. By the year 2040, the people that are on this panel right here will be seniors. So we have to think about that, to start making the change right now to avoid us, sooner or later. I mean, we're not going to have the proper things that we need to survive. And that's food. We need food.
Start by saying we started off in 2012, a very clandestine movement. We refer to ourselves as a secret society. When we first started, it was a lot of house parties, word of mouth. If you knew about the Freestyle Friday events, you could pull up. It was very industry to start, and then from there, the brand grew to doing collaborations with different brands and companies around the world. From Nike, we released a sneaker with Jordan last year. Done some stuff with, like Les said, Audemars Piguet, Cartier. We've hosted events from Fashion Week to the Biennales in Venice to Art Basel in Hong Kong. So we operate at the intersection of fashion, art. We've done some stuff out west in San Francisco, Palo Alto, in the tech world as well. So we find a way to use food as an introduction into these spaces where the conversation around food tended to be lacking. And for us, that was really just our foot in the door in order for us to start achieving the things that we wanted to see to scale the business the way that we envisioned. It was just using food as a tool to get into the room and for our voices to be heard.
What advice do you have for entrepreneurs and social activists that are where you were 10, 15 years ago?
I'd like to say that we should get more into the practice of the destigmatization of what bad food is, what Black people food is, what white people food is, get into the destigmatization of what inexpensive food being unhealthy and expensive food being healthy. We need to change the narrative on these things. I feel like as chefs coming up, new chefs getting into the game, having more of a background and a history on the foods that, that they plan on serving. It's all about storytelling at the end of the day, and engaging your client, engaging your peer with you over a bite to eat. Because essentially we breaking bread, we telling each other stories, we laughing, we having jokes, you know what I mean? We're sharing. To share a plate of food is the same as sharing a bit of knowledge and sharing stories, and these stories intermingling and, you know, creating something larger than, you know, just a widespread of some food on the table. Because it's food for thought, you know, it's
Right.
food for your mind, your body, and your soul. So that's what I would say to, you know, chefs coming up wanting to start their own business. Become more engaged with you know, with your peers, and become more engaged with the clientele that you plan on bringing in, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I would also say for like young chefs that it's important to stay true to who you are, and it's okay to not know exactly what you want to do as long as you're working every day to be better than you were the day before. Where we are right now with GG, we weren't necessarily sure that, I mean, you know, we always had aspirations of creating our own product lines and working with these brands, but in the beginning we weren't necessarily sure how we were going to get there. We just
Mhm.
continued to work towards, you know, we would set a goal and we would work towards it. And it's, the food industry is, it's very wide. So it's not necessarily you have to be a chef in a restaurant. You know, you can see there's different means in the food business. So you could be a chef like Kwame and open restaurants and write books, or you can work like us as well. You know, we worked in restaurants, but we took a different route. And then there's people who work and go straight to media, and there's chefs who work and just feed the community. I would say, you know, just be engaged with the community. What we do with the community, this isn't new. This isn't something that we're doing because it's a trend, because it's a fad. The whole ethos of Ghetto Gastro is always built around the community and the people that build us up and hold us, creating a strong foundation. So if you have a strong foundation and you have a group of people who follow you and believe in you, they're just gonna lift you up to whatever pedestal or whatever level it is. You know, you set the bar for yourself to achieve. So it's like, stay connected with the community, you know, work hard, read, and, you know, just cook. Yeah, it's a nonstop process of learning. You know, you're not gonna, none of us have the game figured out yet. We're just continuing to learn and continuing to build. But as long as you set yourself up with goals to achieve and you
Mhm.
work towards those things, you can accomplish anything.
So Kwame, I want to get you in on this. What advice would you give new chefs that are breaking in the industry, particularly in this time of COVID?
Yeah, I think Pierre and Lester said it very well. It's really just adapting and continuing to try things and not being afraid to fail. I would say that's the main thing, is that removal of the fear of failure will get you so far in life in general. Also, knowing the business and studying the business is something that's really, really important, especially for younger chefs. I didn't know anything that I was doing when I started. And there weren't many chefs that looked like me to even mentor me through those times. And I feel like now there's a different landscape. There are a lot of chefs that are getting notoriety. It's still a fraction. It should be way more, but there are more chefs of color that have some notoriety. And, you know, leaning on people like, you know, Ghetto Gastro, you know, myself, or other chefs of color to mentor them so that they have the tools that they need to be successful. But learning the business is something that's really, really important. Finding your voice as soon as you can, you know, staying true to who you are, you'll have the most longevity in this profession.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about food and the experience of eating or sharing a meal and how that kind of brings us together. Kwame, I'll start with you. Talk to us about food and how that can connect people, no matter where they're from or what they look like.
First and foremost, it's one of the only art forms that we ingest. So it's self-expression in its like truest form. So that's like a beautiful way to look at it. But also you can really get to know someone's culture on a plate of food. You know, you can really express yourself with a dish. I feel that, you know, you're traveling the world. I've seen, you know, anything that's under $10 is shows the true culture of the land wherever I'm at. You know, it shows what the working people eat or what the blue collar people eat. It shows history, you know, it shows generations of people on a plate. And anywhere I go under $10, I can find that. You know, I don't care if it's Puerto Rico, I don't care if it's Guadalajara, I don't care if it's Hong Kong. Those small little spots that are doling out these bowls, you can really, really see what the culture is there and what that land is really about, what those people are about. So I think food is a vessel for connection. And it's also a place where people break bread, you know, where we sit down and talk about our day. Sometimes where you're eating or you're mourning over a meal, you know, or you're celebrating over a meal, you're getting to know someone for the first time. So food is just it's a gateway drug for life.
I know you guys are doing a lot in the Bronx and wanting to let the world know what a great place the Bronx is. What are you currently working on as far as initiatives to bring people together?
Right now, currently, Les touched on it a little bit earlier about our partnership with Rethink Food Group and a restaurant here, La Mirada, in the Bronx. La Mirada is a restaurant that's run by undocumented immigrants, and they've been like the backbone for a lot of people in the community since the pandemic hit. They've been feeding. Initially, they were doing it on their own, and we secured some money, and we were feeding upwards of around a thousand people a day through this Rethink partnership that we have with La Mirada. I mean, that's one of the things. We have also our appliance wear line that we just released with Williams Sonoma.
Yeah, we got some heat with Crux, Williams and Sonoma. Got a line of appliances that are dropping right now with 100% of the proceeds going to Know Your Rights Camp, the Colin Kaepernick Foundation.
Yeah, for the rest of this month.
For the rest of this month. So we got that. We got some heat for your kitchen. Real sexy, sleek, aesthetic. The vibes are, you know, Pan-African. You know, we got a TV show, a pilot that's you know, in the works. Keeping that on the docket right there.
We're working on a book.
Working on the book as well.
So yeah. We're staying busy. Aside from the community stuff, you know, we have our families and stuff as well. So family and you know, we're working on releasing some products, some other products, some better for you brands of food as well. So be looking for those in the future. But we're entering your home now. So
we got some seasoning. We got some seasonings for y'all. You know,
nice.
That's seasonings with a touch of steez.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, we got some do-rag diplomacy. You know, we got you know, cause real heroes rock do-rags, man. You know, the do-gooders rock do-rags and the superheroes rock silkies.
It looks like we're having some questions from our audience. What are your thoughts on tokenism in the food and beverage industry?
In terms of tokenism in the food and beverage industry, there are many Black people that are doing amazing things. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's something that if you are feeling that someone is a token, I think that there should just be more research done within the industry. Everyone that has some sort of platform or has been given a platform or has been given accolades has worked like incredibly hard for that.
What can we do within our local communities to help reduce food scarcity?
Within your local communities, I mean, really, like Les has been preaching about, you have to vote. The local community boards that people have, those meetings, like those are the places where people need to show up and, you know, have a voice and understand what sort of changes are coming in the neighborhood, who's moving in. And those are the places where you can devise a plan as well, because that's where the resources will be. So, you know, you got to find the resources, find where the lack is and where the need is. And honestly, it's just about connecting resources and doing the work, the due diligence that it takes. It's not just like it's not an easy process, but it's definitely doable if you focus and you put in the work and, you know, you reach out. Like Kwame said earlier, you can't be afraid to fail when you're doing things like this, because if you're not failing, then you're not learning. So, you know, just go out, communicate with people, make sure that your feet are on the ground and that you understand where the lack and the need for resources are. And then honestly, it's as easy as going online and doing some research and seeing who's in charge of something, sending an email, or just, it's kind of hard to pull up to people's offices now, but, you know, hit some people in the DM, reach out to your local political office and hit them and hit your politicians in their DMs. Like, those people are on their phones and they're responding. So I would say start a small place and just try to connect the dots.
Folks in the food industry mentioned the shift to establish a presence in smaller communities like Northwest Arkansas. So coming from a major city, New York City, the Bronx, what's the benefit of establishing a business in a smaller growing community?
actually being in tune with your community. You know, you grow up there, you know what needs to be there, what doesn't need to be there. And in the community that I was raised in, within a mile radius, I'm gonna find, 16 bodegas. I'm gonna find, 4 liquor stores. The advantage that a small business owner will have now is to put in the area what is lacking. New natural food stores, natural medicines. Vegetation, fruits, educating people, books, libraries, bookstores.
So what's inspiring you during this difficult time?
That I'm still alive.
Okay.
That inspires me. There are a lot of people that lost their lives. There are a lot of people that in really bad shape because of this. A lot of communities, a lot of families are in bad shape, and that I'm still breathing. That's my silver lining every single day.
I mean, my silver lining, like I touched on earlier, was like I had a daughter. She's like 9 months old now. She's going into her 10th month. So, just knowing that there's another generation coming that we have to pave the way for. And it's not the first time that the world has been hit with a pandemic. Obviously, in the past 100 years, it's probably the biggest one. But especially in a city like New York, we're very resilient. And I know that at the end of all this, that there will be light and that we will rise from the ashes like a phoenix. Whatever city that you're in, it's like just continue to do the work. And if it's not physical work available, do the work on yourself. It's like if there's something that I can do on a day for Ghetto Gastro or for someone in the community, I'm making sure that I do that work every single day for myself. So if it's meditation or reading or just reaching out to somebody that I love and just having a conversation. It's like we're so programmed to work as hard as you can, and especially in this country, it's like we're centered around how much output that you have. It's like how many hours I'm working to do this and to do that, but really what this pandemic is allowing everybody to just take a step back and slow down, pay attention to the things that are most important to them.
Right.
It's broken some relationships up. It's brought some people even closer together. A little downtime is, it's really good. It can be, not too much,
Yeah.
not too much. And I would love for the country to get back and everybody to get their jobs back and for the economy to be booming. But like in the meantime and in between time, take care of yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Well, guys, believe it or not, it looks like that's almost all the time we have. So I want to get one last question out there before we go. Give them one thing to take away from today's interview that will inspire them in their career.
Vote. You have a voice. Use it. And if you don't want to go to the ballots because it's a spooky climate right now, register for your early ballot. Get that mailed to your home. Do the knowledge on, who's running for city council in your neighborhood, because it's more than just voting for a president. We have to make sure we get the right people in our city council. Vote. Facts.
Nice.
For me, one thing to take away is that anybody in the food industry, Reginald Lewis was the first Black billionaire off of food. You could read a book about him called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And I'll just leave it at that. Reginald Lewis, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? He was the first Black billionaire off of the food game. It'll just show you the possibilities. The possibilities are endless.
Compassion. Have compassion for your fellow human. Really try to understand people, from where they're coming from. And if you have that understanding, you'll live a less angry life.
Well, guys, it looks like that is all the time we have for today, but I want to thank you so much for joining us. Thank you guys so much.